Look at verse number 8. So there's a war in heaven, verse 7. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and his dragon fought against the angels. Verse 8, and prevailed not. That is to say, Satan prevailed not. Neither was there found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So I'm going to go back to our chart to explain this. This means he had no judicial holding in the old covenant system. He was cast out because there's no reason to now approach the bench, Your Honor. There's no reason to talk to the jury. The case has been closed. It's been won, Jimmy. There's no more accusing of the brethren. What are you going to accuse? Well, there's no more foothold that you possibly have. They thought they prevailed at the cross, but it was actually their demise. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 2 and verses 7 and 8.
But we speak the wisdom of God in a mystery, even the hidden wisdom which God ordained before the world unto our glory, which none of the princes of this world knew, for had they known it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory.
This is what we were referencing earlier. Had they had known who he was, they would never have crucified the Lord of glory. But they did. And it was through the destruction of Christ's body and his resurrection that crushed the head of the serpent. Genesis 3:15. I'm going to say it over and over again.
Some may ask, well, how come didn't Satan know this? Satan knew who Jesus was.
Yes, but Satan is a narcissist. Satan is wicked.
Yeah.
Satan believes his own hype. Satan tried to destroy Christ before he was born, and after he was born, Satan had the same reaction you and I would have.
Yeah.
When Jesus was born, we would look at him and go, that's it? That's a guy. Not only that, but I know his parents. That's Joseph and Mary's boy. That's the kid that always is playing with wood in the backyard. That's him. We would have had that same reaction. Isaiah chapter 53 states, and he's speaking on behalf of Israel. Isaiah writes, we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God. If we saw him on the cross, we'd say, that guy's getting what he's got coming to him. We did esteem him stricken, smitten of God. That's what our estimation would have been of Jesus. So Satan had the same estimation.
It also says in Isaiah that he wasn't like somebody you would look at like they looked at Saul and said,
exactly,
he's the tallest, he's the best looking guy, he's this and that. Jesus wasn't any of that either.
That's right. That's why David is a type of Christ. David is the anti-Saul.
Yeah.
He's the antitype of Saul. Saul was strong, head and shoulders taller than everybody. Saul probably looked a lot like me. I'm kidding. That's a joke. Just kidding. But Saul was probably just this really ruggedly handsome, strong guy. He was the idea of a king when you saw him.
Yeah.
David was the complete opposite of that. Small stature, young, weak looking, no military experience.
So David probably looked like me.
But you're so handsome. What are you talking about? That's
Saul
definitely
looked
not
like
true.
you. David looked like me. I get it. I think you're right on.
Yes, nailed it. Okay,
my hair used to be
quickly.
red. My hair used to be red like David.
Oh, there you go. Should we encourage people to YouTube old clips of you?
It was never red.
I'm just saying musically. I've seen some fun stuff with you.
Don't look it up. It's sometimes
it's too late.
Sometimes I do see one and I get kind of embarrassed.
I love it. I think you've done some neat things. But yeah, so David is the Christ-like figure, and Saul is more of a satanic type figure, where he's impressive. But God's chosen one, just like Jesus, is not really that impressive to look upon. So we're going back to the question that you're asking about, didn't Satan know? Well, he didn't know, this obvious statement. Satan didn't know before he did know. In other words, in the history of this scarlet thread, we call it, going through from Genesis 3:15, he doesn't know who it's going to be. He just knows it's of the godly line of Eve.
Right.
That's all he knows. So he's trying to take out anybody who looks godly. Oh, Moses, maybe that's him. David, maybe that's him. Look at all the weird things that happen with Moses and David. I mean, all these really godly leaders. And so by the time you get to Jesus, it's like, oh, well, that's definitely not him.
Mm-hmm.
So Jesus didn't really do anything until age 30. A very unassuming life.
Yeah,
And then at age 30.
I'm assuming Satan he started getting a clue when Jesus turned 30 and started doing what he did.
Yeah, he probably thought it was John the Baptist, but John the Baptist said it wasn't him, so that's confusing.
Yeah.
But yeah, when Jesus comes on the scene, it's like, oh man, we start to narrow in these 3 years where he's asleep on the boat, the weather's trying to take him out. Matthew chapter 14, very, very strange. Herod offers his niece whatever she wants on his birthday because she danced for him. Disgusting. And she said, I can have anything I want. He's like, yeah. And so her mom says into her ear, you should request John the Baptist's head. Because it was John the Baptist that told Herod he can't marry his brother Philip's wife.
Mm-hmm.
So he steals his brother's wife. And John the Baptist says, that's not God. You can't do that. So she has a grudge against John the Baptist because he said that. So the niece, now Herod's niece, dances for him for his birthday, says, I'm going to give you whatever you want. I love watching you dance. And her mom gets in her ear and says, ask for John the Baptist. Anyway, so he kills John the Baptist. The head is delivered to the daughter. She carries the head. What a sick thing. She carries the head to her mom. And then all of a sudden, guess what, Jimmy? He starts hearing about the works of John the Baptist again. But it's not through John. It's through Jesus. He starts hearing similar things. Hey, there's a guy with 10,000 people over here. He's feeding them. He's healing people. He's going, oh my goodness. You know what Herod said? That must be John the Baptist resurrected.
Yeah.
So Jesus now has to run for his life because Herod thinks he's John the Baptist. I mean, it's just the most bizarre stuff, one after another, as Jesus is trying to make his way to the cross. He heals somebody. Don't tell anybody what happened to you, okay? Just this is between me and you. I'm just going to heal you. Just shh, because he's trying to get to the cross. Just trying to get to the cross. Okay, I'll feed 15,000 people. Because the feeding of the 5,000 was besides women and children, assuming a 1-to-1 ratio. That's a feeding of the 15,000.
Right.
He's trying to hide from Herod when he fed the 15,000. He's trying to hide from Herod. He's going up into the mountains and there's a big multitude. We found him. He's like, oh, guys, please. He's just trying to get alone to pray, to hide from Herod. So the whole story is crazy.
Yeah.
Before we go to verse 10, Jimmy, do you mind if we hit Luke chapter 10 and verses 17 through 20, if you don't mind?
The 70 returned again with joy, saying, Lord, even the devils are subject unto us through thy name. And he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. Notwithstanding, in this rejoice not, that the spirits are subject unto you, but rather rejoice because your names are written in heaven.
Such an important passage, Jimmy. Thank you for reading that. This is when we're talking about the return of the 70. He commissioned 70. They come back in and they're absolutely excited out of their mind. And they go to Jesus and they say, you're not going to believe this. And they're rejoicing, saying that even the devils are subjected onto us through your name. Did you know that the devils have to do things when we say your name? This is the craziest. Like, I can't believe this. And they're so excited. And so when they're speaking of spiritual victories in Israel before Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection, Jesus then says to them, guys, let me tell you a vision that I had. While you guys were speaking and while you're getting victory over it, you know what's happening right now? I beheld that Satan as lightning fell from heaven. Now remember in Revelation 12, what are we reading? We're reading that there's no more place found for Satan, that he fell from heaven. Okay, so we are now putting in a timeline here during the ministry of Christ. He's seeing a vision of the total conquest over Satan, because that's going to happen at the cross. So as these guys are speaking, they're getting a little taste a little shadow of the destruction of Satan at the cross. And they're like, they have to listen to us. And Jesus, like, let me tell you, like a vision that I just saw while you guys were speaking. I beheld Satan fell from heaven like lightning. And he's saying, I'm going to give to you the power to tread over scorpions and serpents over this enemy. Now, that's the same terminology we see in Revelation, where we see these scorpions and locusts. And he says in verse number 20, he gets their ability to focus on what's important. He says, guys, I don't want you to rejoice just because you have power over the enemy. There's a bigger picture at play here. And Jimmy, I will just say that if folks that are watching us are getting a steady diet of people trying to scare them with the power of Satan, they need to run from a teacher that does that. We are more than conquerors through Christ our King. We have victory through his blood. Satan is a defeated foe. He is not in charge of anything. The only thing that Satan can do to you at all is if you reject the gospel and you make yourself lunch meat for him by leaving the power of Jesus out of the salvation shelter. That you should be worried about. But as far as Satan being the God of this world, that's wildly out of context, the prince of the power of the air, wildly out of context, Satan is a defeated foe. He's not in charge of anything. If people reject the gospel and they run willingly to Satan, he will mess up their lives. But he is not just blanketly in charge of the government. He doesn't have the power to do big conspiracies. Now, I'm not saying there's not wickedness, but I'm saying we need to get our minds renewed in the power of Jesus. Here it's talking about Jesus is controlling their thinking. He says in verse 27 or verse 20, he says, you guys should not be so excited that you have power over the devils, but rather, what does it say in verse 20? Rather, you should be rejoicing because why? Your names are written in heaven. And that's the part that a lot of bad teachers are missing from their ministries. They are controlling people out of fear rather than rejoicing that we're in the family of God and our names are written down in heaven. So even in this context, before his death, burial, and resurrection, they couldn't believe the power they had over the fallen angels, or whatever you want to, we'll just say the devils here, Satan, the devils. And they couldn't believe the power they had over them. And Jesus is saying, there's even more of a reason to rejoice. The reason is that your names are written in heaven. You're in my family. Far more powerful thought. Far more powerful to have your name on the right side than to know that you have the ability to control the devils through my name. So just to try to control a little bit of, those that would really want to control people through fear, you just get in Christ. He'll take care of everything. We're okay in him. Verse number 10 says, and I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. So now is salvation come. Now has the power of Christ been made manifest, because the accuser of our brethren, Jimmy, the accuser of our brethren has been cast down. There's now no more place found for him in the new covenant. There's no legal loophole anymore. It was by the blood of Christ and by the atoning sacrificial power of Christ on the cross. He closed all the legal loopholes here, and now there's no more place found for him. Jimmy, if we could, let's go to Romans chapter 3 and verse number 26.
To declare, I say, at this time his righteousness, that he might be just, and the justifier of him which believeth in Jesus.
Okay, we're going to have to look at this for just a second, because this is a big one. Here we're talking about that when, to declare, I say, at this time his righteousness. When we are in salvation, we are declaring the righteousness of Christ. I can't tell you how many times throughout the week I answer questions with people that say, I don't know if I'm saved because I'm just not sure if I'm doing enough. I don't know if I'm producing enough fruit. I hear it constantly. I don't know if I'm obeying enough. I want to be doing more, and I'm just not. I hope I'm saved. Listen, Jimmy, if we want to make sure that we're saved, we do not declare our own fruit.
Right.
What do we declare to be saved? Verse 26. To declare, I say, at this time, his righteousness. We declare the righteousness. Of course, you're not good enough. We don't declare your righteousness, folks. Nobody is sitting here trying to wonder if you're righteous or not. You're not. For my salvation, you want to know why I have security in my salvation? Because I wake up and I declare the righteousness of Christ and his sufficiency in my life. My faith is in him. And I pray through the fumbling of this life, as my faith is in him, I will produce some fruit for him. You know what I find? That is a byproduct of me declaring his righteousness. That's it. Declare his righteousness. Verse 26 says this, that he might be just and the justifier of him which believeth in Jesus. This is the new thing. The new thing is this. This system is out. This system is in. This was the argument of the accuser of the brethren. How can you, God, Satan speaking, how can you justify an unjust people based on their effort in the sacrificial system and still remain just? How can the just be the justifier of the unjust by using the unjust to justify themselves? Explain that to me. That's the weakness of the old system. Okay? So that's Paul's argument here in verse 26. He says, declare, I say at this time, his righteousness. That's the new thing. That he might be just and the justifier of him which believeth in Jesus. Who does he justify? Those that believe in him. That's what that verse says. All right, let's go to verse 11, Revelation 11. I'm going to skip over that in your notes there. Revelation chapter 12, let's go to verse number 11. And they overcame him, that is, they overcame the dragon. They overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death. This is the same story we've been saying. How do you overcome Satan? By fruit bearing? No, that's a byproduct of your faith. How do you overcome Satan? It says it right here. How do you get saved?
By the blood
By
of the
the
Lamb.
blood of the Lamb. And there's one more element to it. The blood of the Lamb would apply to everybody, but there's one more element to it. What is it?
The
word of their testimony. So it's your confession that the blood of the Lamb is sufficient is how you overcome Satan.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it says, folks. So who are the overcomers? Remember we talked about this earlier in our study in Revelation. Those who overcome, they obey the commandments of God. And how do you do that? By the blood of the Lamb and the word of your testimony. I confess in the court of law. It's the blood of the Lamb. I put my trust in this new system, in the new covenant. It's the blood of the Lamb. It's not my own efforts. It's the blood of the Lamb. It's the ministry of death versus the ministry of the Spirit and of life. Let's go to Mark chapter 8 and verse 35.
For whosoever will save his life shall lose it. But whosoever shall lose his life for my sake and the gospel's, the same shall save it.
I think there's a lot of people today that think that if they can save their own life, they save their life. Am I producing enough fruit? Am I obedient enough? I want to save my own life. I got to do this. Opposite. You lose your life for the cause of Christ, and whoever loses his own life will save his life. I am not able to do this on my own, Jimmy. I place my faith in Christ. He does the work for me. It's his effort that I'm saved. After that is a done deal and I'm in his family, there's going to be a byproduct of fruit in my life because I love him. But I'm not looking for that to be the thing that gets me into his family. It's a byproduct of being in his family. I can't help but talk about him. I can't help but teach about him. He's changed me. He's given me a new heart. I love him. So it's out of this relationship that I have with him. Let's go to verse number 12. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea. For the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. Notice he hath a short time. So now that there's no room for him to be the accuser of the brethren, because the system in heaven now, after Christ has died and resurrected, is so airtight that there's no reason for him to even accuse the brethren anymore. He can't. There's no judicial cause for him to point anything out. There's no flaw in the life of Christ. So he's cast down. But the bad news is that means he's now come down to earth because there's no more place found for him in heaven. But notice here it says in verse number 12 that he knows that he has but a short time. Now, what is that time talking about? He has a short time before the temple is destroyed, before the new covenant is completely, remember the baton passing we talked about, before that baton is handed off in the new covenant. He only has a little bit of time left to really mess with Israel before the temple is destroyed, and causes many people to not understand this is possible. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 12 and verses 22 and 23.
But ye are come unto Mount Zion, and to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to an innumerable company of angels, to the general assembly and church of the firstborn, which are written in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of just men made perfect.
So we've joined this new family through Christ. And this cloud of witnesses that we've joined we are doing this through faith by the blood of the Lamb. That's exactly what we're talking about here in Revelation 12 in the opening of Act number 2. It's what is now, because in light of Act 1 and all that the Lamb did, now what does that mean for his bride? And that's what we're learning about in this. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 3 and verse number 10.
To the intent that now unto the principalities and powers in heavenly places might be known by the church the manifold wisdom of God.
So now that Satan has been cast to the earth, and now that there's been instruction given to the followers of Christ to plead the blood of the Lamb, to call upon his name, and to have faith in him, what's left for Satan now? What's his story?
If you like this video, hit that like and subscribe button, and check out the full episode by clicking the link below.